Arena. Jetzt spricht im Namen der Kommission Vizepräsident Timmermans.
On behalf of the Commission, Mr.
Thank you very much,
Timmermans,
Mr. President. I've listened very carefully to this debate. Let me please make a few points. First of all, after the painful experiences of the first half of the last century, the free part of Europe, those of us who were lucky enough to end up on the right side of the Iron Curtain, immediately understood, and this was inspired by Winston Churchill, and I'm saddened by the fact that Mr. Kamal, who made such horrible allegations, has left, so I can't answer him personally. But what Churchill brought to the table was this. We have seen that it is possible to use democracy against the rule of law, simply by saying, I have a majority, therefore I dictate what the rule of law is. That's why the Council of Europe, which was created before this institution, always said, in a democracy, you accept the limits in democratic action which are set by the rule of law, which is controlled by a completely independent judiciary. That is the very foundation of democracy in Europe, after very, very painful experiences in our common history. And as soon as the Iron Curtain fell and the Polish people had fought for their liberty and obtained their liberty, they immediately subscribed to that principle and wanted to join the Council of Europe as soon as possible, and as a follow-up of that, also the European Union. And the fundamental principle is that you respect the rule of law, you respect human rights, you respect democracy, but you don't use one against the other. There is a balance between the three that is essential for the European Union, for Europe to remain free. And I cannot understand that some people would use the word freedom to fight the very concept of the rule of law on the basis of a democratic majority. The strength of democracy is based on the fact that those who have the majority respect the limits that the rule of law places upon them. This is the context within which we work. And I'm saddened by the fact that with all the propositions we have made from our side for a dialogue with the Polish government, we see exactly again the same thing here today in this chamber. Mr. Legutko took 8 minutes not to go into the 3 points that we have put on the table with the Polish government. What did he say about not publishing the rulings of the Constitutional Tribunal? Nothing. You cannot, if you respect the division of powers, if you respect the independence of the judiciary, as a government, you cannot pick and choose which rulings of a constitutional tribunal you like and only publish those you like. You cannot do that. That's in violation of the Polish constitution. You cannot ignore the vote in a parliament to elect judges to the Constitutional Tribunal simply because you do not like the composition of that previous parliament. When judges are lawfully elected, they should be sworn in by the President of the Republic. That is in line with the Constitution. And you cannot introduce ways of operating the tribunal that are clearly in violation of the Constitution. And the arbitrator there is the Constitutional Tribunal. So the least you should do is submit these draft laws or laws to the Constitutional Tribunal and then accept the judgment of that Constitutional Tribunal. That's the whole point of respecting the rule of law. But also in political terms. I already said something about some people here using freedom against this very principle. This is not the commission of others looking at Poland. I'm also a Polish commissioner. I feel a responsibility for the Polish people. I feel a responsibility for the rule of law all across the European Union. I can tell you, on a personal note, I might not even be alive had my family, had my father not been liberated in 1944 by Polish soldiers who offered their lives for our collective freedom. So I feel a huge debt of gratitude towards the Polish people, a personal debt of gratitude, which compels me to insist on these points and to continue on these points. These men who freed us never saw freedom themselves, but their children and grandchildren are living in a free and strong and independent Poland. Poland has never been as independent as it is today as a full-fledged member of NATO and the European Union. This is something I cherish. This is one of the greatest achievements of European history. So please, be aware, and I see it's not only in Poland, I see it in many countries, nationalists and ultra-nationalists attacking judges everywhere in a personal way, attacking the judiciary, ignoring rulings of judges. This should be a warning to all of us, not just in Poland. We see it all across the European Union in some states. Personal attacks, discrediting the so-called elites. Who are these elites? Attacking the freedom of the press. Not saying it's happening in Poland, I'm saying it's a European phenomenon we should be aware of. Freedom. Freedom is what so many people fought for. The European Union, based on the rule of law, democracy, and respect for human rights, is the concrete expression of the will of freedom of 500 million Europeans. And that is why I believe these institutions, the European Parliament and the Commission, have a responsibility where we can to help 500 million Europeans in the expression of their freedom. And for that, we need an independent judiciary in every single member state. We need full respect of the separation of powers, which is an essential element of our freedom. And we need the possibility to debate and discuss. Because another element I warn about is portraying your adversaries as enemies. We are political opponents sometimes, then we have a political debate. With your adversary, you have a debate. Your enemy you want to destroy or ignore. In a democracy, there are no enemies, there are adversaries. And that is how this Parliament operates, that is how the Commission wants to operate, and that is what we need to defend for our children and grandchildren, for our collective future. A Europe whole and free, based on democracy, the rule of law and human rights. Thank you very much.